Welcome back to the Combo Classroom, where today, this time I'm actually doing a stream where it's not tonight, it's not fully dark out, although that may approach us quite soon. Another thing approaching us quite soon is my fluffy cat Dandelion, so let's see if he joins us. Dandasaur. Dandy Boo. Come here, Dandelion. Dandelion is joining us because he's a very good boy. I don't know if you can see him very well, but there's my little Dandelion. Anyway, I'll be petting him while I begin this stream. Let me pull open what we're going to do today. In the first background... Oh, another cat is coming. The stray cat that I adopted, basically, known as Sassafras. He's over there, too, in addition to our Dandelion. They're friends. Dandelion is a very good role model for the stray. Now, today, mostly what we're going to be doing, although the first thing I'll put on somewhat as a test, somewhat as a background thing, is going to be one of our classic Desmos graphs, where we're going to fiddle around with an equation while I talk about the intro of the stream. The main thing we're going to be doing, and why I'm setting up this to be ready for a computer screen visibility, is that we're going to be looking at mathematical memes. Now, a meme was a word I believe originally quoted off Richard Dawkins, the scientist, if I'm not saying that fact wrong, and that it's based on memetics, which are the concept of an internet-esque thing translating itself in a way similar to how natural life spreads. I'm sure others could describe the concept better than me. However, a meme has now just become a term for a funny image that sometimes uses a specific style. Occasionally you'll call a video a meme as well, or a quote or something, if it has that memetic property. But typically it's a photo of a funny thing done in a somewhat particular style. Now, memes are, in my opinion, decent. You know, the average meme is B or C grade, but what about some mathematical memes? I know my audience could appreciate those. Now, while I chat about this intro, I will note that I was fiddling around with... We did factorials in the graphs on the last stream, and I was fiddling around with what happens when I do square roots of factorials, and it's pretty cool when we add the square root of some of these factorials. That's x factorial square root equaling y factorial square root, where this stretch is being interpolated via the gamma function as an extension to the typical factorial function. Now, typically factorials are not a function, so the gamma function turns it to a function. I will explain more about that later. For now, this is just our cool backdrop, and I'm going to be throwing random stuff on top of it while we do that. Anyway, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to pull open some memes soon that are from a particular source. This is just from a single thing. Here, by the way, on the graphs, I'm just adding a few so I can give them different types of things, like sine and tan look different. And then we'll do one like secant. And then we'll do one that's like hyperbolic, like the hyperbolic sine or something. And these are different colors now. And now we can, first of all, let's turn the, okay, I know I'm not going to the memes that quickly, but this is fun to have in the background. And it's also fun to design from scratch each stream so that we see different shapes in the background each time. Now, the one thing I'm going to add is a little A in each of these so that we can fiddle around with the slider and see what happens as A changes while I talk. Now, soon, I'm going to pull open some math memes. And those are going to be basically from one source, which is Reddit. It's a particular subreddit. We're going to be looking at this one, math memes on subreddit, and their top posts of all time, with my critical analysis that, for the most part, I think they're probably going to be quite funny. I only took a brief stroll myself before this stream through the top posts of all time to get a few for the thumbnail, but I go on Reddit sometimes as one of the only social medias I go on, and I don't post on there, but it's where I get certain news from. And here, this math memes has occasionally popped up something that I've found funny. And I think by going through the top posts of all time of this community that has over 500,000 members, and like, for example, the top post here has 27,000 people click that they like it. And so, going through these things, we're going to find some quite funny ones that made me laugh. I think will make many of my viewers laugh, and I think maybe they would like my way of explaining it on top of that. My little analysis or explanation of some of these memes. So that's what we'll begin in a minute, and thank you for the people who are doing random comments in our chat, just saying hello. For 1 second before we launch into our main memes, well, okay, first I'm just going to explain. I want to note that you can see their description is our Lord and Savior -1/12. And the reason behind that is based on this one Numberphile video. Many of my viewers may also be subscribed to Numberphile. Generally, they are very great. I love Numberphile. The guy Brady who creates them is an awesome documentarian. Many of the mathematicians that he, interviews in his videos are brilliant. However, they have one video that they kind of held their ground and decided to die on the hill on to a degree. Not die in terms of the channel dying. It's a great channel still. But die on the hill of, as an expression. They decided to say, no, we were correct about this one video where a physicist that was interviewed presented a mathematical equation that was a rearrangement of an infinite series that resulted in the sum of the positive integers being -1/12. And whenever I bring up infinite series, whether I'm saying, oh, the positive fractions of all the integers are called the harmonic series, and they diverge to infinity if you go far enough. Or I'm just saying, okay, the reciprocals of the square roots of 2, if you keep adding them up, approach either 1 if you started from the first power, or approach 2 if you started from the 0th power. And whatever I say about that, people bring up this 1/12 thing. So I knew this was my sort of subreddit out of all of them when they had a sort of mockery of that. Now, nothing against Numberphile. I will say, if anybody wants to see a coherent takedown on the idea that the sum of the positive integers is -1/12, well, I'll make one someday of my own style, but for now, the best is Mathologer. That channel, which is excellent, has created a video in the past that sort of debunked this phenomena. The reason I would say debunked is that when you rearrange an infinite series, there's ways to make it equal any value, and one of the rearrangements equals -1/12. But an infinite series doesn't follow the same commutative and associative properties we're used to, and so rearranging it doesn't always work. And so rearranging an infinite series, you can typically result in any number you want if you did it a certain way. One of the simpler ways results in -1/12. Now, it is an important number. It's the type of summation they do there is called a Ramanujan summation, or Ramanujan, I believe it's more pronounced, who is one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. One of my favorites, at least. This Indian mathematician who never studied formally, but who had these brilliant ideas so ahead of his time. And the Ramanujan summation of a certain type of series equals negative 1/12th, but that guy himself would never have said that the typical sum of all the positive integers equals that. When we think the sum of the positive integers, we're thinking, okay, that goes to infinity. And yes, your gut is correct, unless you redefine what sum means or what positive integers means, or unless you redefine any of your terms. Yes, the sum of the positive integers goes to infinity. Once you redefine what equal means and plus means and stuff, you can get to negative 1/12th, but you can also get to many other numbers. Okay, so that's an extended intro about why they have that particular catchphrase. Nothing against Numberphile, nothing against Brady, or even the guy Tony Padilla, I believe it is, or Tony Padilla, or something like that. Maybe Tony Padilla, I assume. Nothing against those guys who were the documentarian and presenter in that video that's become a little controversial in the math community. However, I do think it's a little bad, the cockiness they presented behind it, of that it was purely correct to say that it was a sum, as opposed to, admitting more so that it's only a sum when we redefine the word sum. Now, that is an overcomplicated explanation of why they simply have that catchphrase. I better not explain any of these things. By the way, since I mentioned Mathologer and a comment said that they're the bomb, I might as well mention I'm a Patreon supporter of Mathologer. You can see my name in his credits. And if you want your name in the credits of my main videos on my main combo class channel, you could be my Patreon supporter as well. I'm going to start putting bonus footage on that very soon again. I've been behind on putting bonus stuff for those supporters, but at least you get your names in my episodes, and you will hopefully get your bonus content soon as well. Now, people are talking about Terrence Howard's beliefs. Well, we certainly cannot believe the guy who I made a stream a while ago mocking due to his beliefs that he has officially proven that 1 times 1 is 2, meaning the square root of 2 is 1. However, someday maybe it'll be worth it to make a full episode or bonus video about that. For now, we'll keep it to the stream I made a while ago. That guy does not need any extra stuff right now until I'm in a mood to make fun of some fake proofs, because they're very fake. They're very wrong. And we've already covered the funniest things he's done wrong so far. So once he does some more funny things wrong, maybe we'll return to that concept. Now, I hate to say, I need to take a 1 to 3 minute break to run inside and get some water before I jump into all of the memes that we'll be looking at today, that I'll be explaining on this subreddit, that is just one random source, but hey, it has 500,000 people like this page before, and these are the top rated memes of one of the biggest meme collections of all time. So why it says top 1% of by size on Reddit. So why don't we analyze what they have to say, what the democracy of voting on this site has to say about the funniest math memes of all time. Some of them we're going to laugh at and scroll by. Some of them will scorn and mock a little bit. Some of them I will go on a long rant explaining why I think they're hilarious. So let's see a combo of those in a second. I need to run inside for a second to get some water. So what I'm going to do in that meantime is set this slider to the slowest animation speed I can and cause some chaos back here, baby. So watch this thing evolve for a minute or two. Tell me your favorite shape that you see in this, and I'll be back soon. All right, folks, remember to always stay hydrated. Actually, water is one of the most important things in the universe that we know of, at least for humans. So make sure that you always drink a ton of water each day, more than you think you'd need to. It'll make you happier than you expect. Now, time to look at some freaking math memes. Now, this is pretty cool. You got to admit, this thing in the background, we're pausing it right now. In fact, I'm going to close the window. I'll rebuild it if I need to later in the stream, but I feel like there's a chance it'll slow down something about our math memes. So, sorry to that. But that looked pretty beautiful while we had it. Now, you can always go on Desmos yourself and create it. Desmos is one of my favorite websites. And, let's see if subreddit math memes is one of our favorite websites as well. We're on the top posts of all time. Now, let's roll down a bit. And we're going to analyze the top. I don't know how many we'll get to. Depending how hilarious they are, if they make me rant a lot about them or not, we'll get to somewhere from 10 to 50 of the top memes of all time. According to this 500,000 based subreddit. Now, we don't need this side thing, so let me go in my thing here and stretch it a bit so we get mostly just that. We can stretch that a bunch. And we can shrink me a little. Now, our first meme is a joke on how people extrapolate data wrong, basically. So, the first Batman, this is all true data up until, the point where they start making the joke. The first Batman film was in 1960. The first reboot was in 1989. The second reboot in 2005. The third in 2016. The fourth in 2022, which, given sufficient extrapolation, suggests that by 2050 or so, there will be a new Batman reboot every 15 microseconds. Now, this is, if you take a graph and you assume that earlier points on the graph imply a later point, you can get ridiculous proofs or results such as this. If we decide that the rate that new Batman films are increasing will be consistent, yeah, all the logic here is true. But we know it's going to be more logarithmic because they're not going to be able to get to a reboot every 15 microseconds. Now, down here, we got our next one. This one I even used a bit of in the thumbnail because it looked cool. This is an old meme, so I know a little too much about internet, or at least the YouTube style of internet culture. So I know that this guy is the flex tape guy. This guy, he was known for this ridiculous over the top set of ads where he was sticking this tape he was trying to sell on different things and completely fixing them with this little piece of tape. And he did it on a boat. And right here, he's doing it on a water jug of some sort. Some leaking water jug. He slaps his flex tape on and it's just like, woo, it's fixed. And here we have a joke on that, saying that first part where it's leaking is me not trusting my calculator's order of operations. Like, what's it going to do first? Is it going to do the logarithm or the exponent first? And then here you just slap an extra set of parentheses on there. Now, this is actually a kind of logical conclusion of the meme. Like, it's a joke that you have to do that, but it's also smart to do that at times. Slapping them extra sets of parentheses never really hurt anybody. You don't want the extra sets of parentheses in your formal papers, but when you're doing some research, that extra set of parentheses never hurt a soul, and might as well slap an extra one on top, like a little bit of flex tape, I guess. Now here we have a meme about what it's like to be the average proof fan of I proved this through this long, complex way versus an average. It seems to work. enjoyer. That's a medium good meme because I like proofs. I don't know if I support the hypothesis that we should mock the people who like proofs compared to the seems to workers. But when you're doing certain bits of research, you do get to this point where you're like, okay, I know this thing seems true, and I'm going to assume it to try and test some stuff instead of worrying about proving every step. Now, I'm proving some very interesting things for the next episode on the Combo Class channel. Because my main Combo Class channel, we only got 2 more episodes in grade -2 before we move to grade -3. And they're both finales of sorts. The next one is our mathematical finale, a big, long mathematical episode, including things I proved for the first time. And the one after that is a finale that more so looks over the grade in a documentary-ish way. So, here we got another meme about... this is weird, because this isn't really a meme. This is sort of just bad mathematics. So the meme they're saying is not about the question. It's about this sentence that the person who posted this on Reddit said, the amount of people who think it's $400 is baffling. Now, this implies the answer is probably $400, so let's test it. If you started with X dollars and you bought a cow for $800, you now have X minus $800 plus 1 cow. And you sold it for $1,000. That's $200 more than that, so we now have X plus $200 and no cow. You bought it again for $1,100. So we had $200, now we're X minus $900 plus cow. Sold it again for $1,300, X plus $400, no cow. You earned $400. So, I don't know why this is in the meme subreddit. This almost should be in the number theory subreddit that we've explored before and we may need to explore again, because it turns out a lot of people post weird fake proofs on the main math subreddit. So the moderators there tell them, no, if you have this type of proof, post it on the number theory subreddit. I'm kind of mad that number theory didn't get a real subreddit and got a joke one, but the number theory subreddit is where they direct all the people with insane proofs. And so there's some insane proofs on there. And by insane proofs, I don't mean insane and a real proof. I mean insane related to the fact that it's not a real proof. Now, here, I think the logic that a lot of people get wrong is they don't do the full equations in their head, and they're like, let's say we did this hyper quick in our head. So I'm down 800. Now I'm up 200. Now I'm down 900. Now I'm up I don't know. I'm not sure how they got to the wrong answer. That's not really a meme. That should just be on one of those bad mathematics subreddits. Now, this one's weird. This one, I don't get how this is a meme either, and I don't get why it's tagged math pun. However, it becomes funny in context, because it got taken really seriously by different users on this subreddit, and I saw multiple responses to it that were people's animations or equations or whatever of which one would actually happen. The question is, which will die first if E pushes the stone? Now, I don't get how that's a math pun. It's almost more of just a physics question. But if E pushes the stone, who will die first? Well, we're going to see another one of those later, I believe, that may answer the question. Okay, here they say Google expect... Okay, I'm sorry that I just picked top because I remember a few of these, and some of these I'm going to be roast. I guess that's good, to pick apart which ones are the good math memes and which ones are not. This is another one that's not a good math meme, because watch this. They say Google expected value, as if the joke is that they don't know about expected value. And the thing is, if you could choose only one button, which could you choose and why? And there's instant 1 million or 50% chance at 50 million. Now, the thing is, they're acting like if you look up expected value and research that concept more, that everyone would agree you want the one with the mathematical expected value. But they've phrased this in real world terms where many people who are poor would rather have 1 million for sure than a chance at a larger amount. Like 1 million would be enough to fix their life, and they would be okay with the guarantee of that compared to the possibility of something larger. And so to some people it wouldn't even feel larger, because you can do almost as much with 1 million as you can do with 50 million. Of course, not as much, but in some people's lifestyles, 1 million would get you everything you need. Now, so that's a dumb meme. We're skipping that one again, and we're skipping the ad. Of course, this is, okay, I'm just going to hate on the site Reddit for a second, where they make them look like posts in the subreddit now, but they just put promoted really subtly. I feel like, I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it used to be more obvious which ones were sponsored advertisements. Now it just says promoted really small if it's not necessarily an upvoted post in the thread, or in this case, we're looking up the top of all time, if it's not necessarily that, but it's an advertisement. It's like a tiny little promoted they tuck in there. And now, because of that, I've seen ad companies try and fit in. They try and make the title sound like something you'd see on Reddit, like a casual phrasing of something. Now that, for some reason, really pisses me off. If a company acts like, I'm just your friend, I'm casual, and then you realize this is an advertisement, that's not that cool. Now, in any case, skipping by it because I spent too long accidentally spending the screen on their advertisement, god dang it. This is one example of somebody who supposedly answered the puzzle. However, they answered it in a kind of a dark sort of meme way. Basically, they calculated some things about it, and they show that based on some calculations, D does get hit by that thing, B could get hit by that thing, and the rest catch Ebola, according to their calculations. So, kind of dark meme right there, but I actually love dark humor. I just have to bite my tongue on stream sometimes because we're an educational channel. You got to be careful with dark humor because in this case, it doesn't sound hateful to people who happened to have Ebola. Dark humor can be a guise for some people to use hatefulness. In other cases, it can just be somebody expressing dark thoughts that we all experience about life without hating any particular person or group. Now, moving onward, we got a funny log one. This one's about logarithms. So, basically a rule of logarithms is if you have the logarithm of x to the power of y, the logarithm of that whole thing, it equals y, the exponent like hops over, y times the logarithm of x. Now, this is, we're assuming we'd use the natural log here. It's sort of weird when you see log without any expression underneath there. I don't like the way it's phrased, because log does not, in some contexts, people mean log of base 10. What power you have to raise a number to get 10. Now, in some contexts, like working on computers, some people mean log base 2. In almost all mathematical contexts, you mean log base e. But there are circumstances where you either mean 2, 10, or some other value that fits your equation. And so, I wish people put the subscript more often, or put ln, a natural log, if they meant they need log 2. But in any case, that's a rule. And here we see it hop off in the emojis. They have both these emojis made. Looks like a guy sweating from laughter, and looks like now just a teardrop or a raindrop, and the guy without the sweating but still laughing. So, funny use of emojis to create a technically true equation. Okay, this one I love. This is brilliant. This is brilliant humor, folks. I think this is great humor. I'm putting it in front of me. We're showing just it. It took me a second to get this when I saw it. That's why it's funny, is when it takes you a second to get it, and then you realize how great it is. The four horsemen of 3/4. You have 75%. That's one way of saying 3/4. You have 3/4. You have 0.75. And you have... And at first you're like, wait a minute. That doesn't describe 3/4. That's blank. Why would blank mean 3/4? But then you realize that 3/4 of them are here. They only gave us 3/4 of the four horsemen of 3/4. For some reason, I find that one good. Okay. Going onward, we have my blanket. Okay. I'm sorry to get distracted from the memes. Sometimes, I'm like cat over here, this over there. Right now, I'm like mosquito over where? Because I am itching. Someone bit me. There's a big itchy bump on my leg, and some mosquito around here bit me. Last stream, when it got dark, I slapped this one mosquito dead, and it was as big as a fly. It was the biggest mosquito I've seen. And his friend must be around here or something. Anyway, I'm going to try and ignore my itching and show this next meme, which is my blanket, when I try and find the long side. And they're showing here what I believe is representing a Klein bottle. It's like a 3D Mobius strip-ish thing, which a Klein bottle is a 3D Mobius strip. So I think this is a way to represent a Klein bottle, is the term for a 3D one. Now, you may see these even made out of glass at times, but those are not an actual Klein bottle. They're a representation of the closest we can get in 3D to a shape that combs through the fourth dimension. This thing called a Mobius strip, I'll make an episode about someday, combs through the second dimension, even though it's technically 1D, and this thing called this, which is, I think, a representation of a Klein bottle, is 2D shape. Well, you can have ones that even need to come 2 dimensions higher. I might be explaining that a little wrong. I'm mixing it up in my head with the knot theory stuff, which is its whole own set of episodes someday. But for now, this meme is basically showing that these shapes, even though they look like they should have an inside and outside, if you follow them, you find that they have one side. They come around to the same place. And so this is like your blanket when you're like, you want to flip it over and you're like really tired in bed and you're like, why is it still on the same side? I've tried to flip it over like 20 times. What? How's it still on the same side? So this is a meme on that. Now, going further, we have the scales of temperature. Fahrenheit ranges from really cold outside at 0 to really hot outside at 100. Now, okay, this is a joke because everyone knows that Fahrenheit's dumb. Okay, not everyone knows, but most of my viewers would probably agree. Fahrenheit's dumb. I happen to use it in some things because I live in America. That's just what we use around here. You got to fit in. Celsius is a bit smarter. It's a more logical way of phrasing it. And then Kelvin makes sense only in certain scientific contexts. Now, like, you don't want to measure your temperature day to day in Kelvin, but you might measure an experiment in that. Now, Fahrenheit, right? This is a joke because they're making Fahrenheit sound like the right one, and I doubt they actually believe that. But it's funny too, See to what degree you can. Oh my god! I saw one of the really really big mosquitoes. It was really really big. Okay, I need like. Okay. If we get enough people who ask for this and want this, I'm gonna light a big campfire or something out here to scare them all away, and see them all, because I swear they're flocking. I have like bumps on me now. There's mosquito. Okay, you know what? My family's actually gone. We could even go inside. I'm at, the combo classroom is behind my parents' house in a little corner of a yard that I, to some degree own. And we could go inside because all the folks are gone today. So maybe we'll go inside, because I swear I'm getting bit on every limb. I have a bite on each leg at least. But whatever. We're going to do one or two more memes and see if that is crucial. Here, Fahrenheit goes from really cold outside to really hot outside. Celsius, that's almost as good. We go to fairly cold outside to dead. Kelvin, not as good. We got dead to dead. Okay. Now, here we have one that's. This is funnier if you read it upside down. That's why I skipped past the top at first. Wait till we go back. It says, new study finds that crows are so intelligent they understand the concept of zero. And the main response to that is, WTF? Okay, any of my viewers who know what that stands for already know what it. If you should know what it stands for, you do. WTF am I supposed to do with this information? And then you go up, and the main comment on here is proof by Crow that zero is a natural number. That's the title. So there's a big debate in mathematics over whether the natural numbers go 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., or 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And big debate, because in some fields one makes more sense, in other fields the other makes more sense. Okay, if I have to come out with my opinion right now, I would say I'm more on the side of zero being a natural number. However, we'll get into that another day. Now, this is a gag this person didn't invent. They're saying they smoked some real good shit that day, and this was the result. And they didn't come up with this gag. I've seen this gag in the past before. But this is a gag so classic that I even had this written on my wall the entire grade. You can see that in the background of some episodes. Where is it? It's behind one of these walls or something. It might be behind that bookshelf or something. We got somewhere here a version of that. And so that could be in the background of one of the old combo class episodes, actually. Now, to anyone leaving comments, I will check those in a minute. I love commenters, and I like responding to you at the right times, but I'm going to just roll forward with a few more memes, and then I will chat with the comments and consider moving inside due to the mosquitoes. Now we have, I got lost. I got to top today. And this is an example of how people mess around on here, though. This is kind of funny. One of these is, Fibonacci repost, day 12. So all of these are posts they've done before. And each time, if they take one of the old posts combined with one of the new ones, and each one contains a previous batch, it ends up being like the Fibonacci sequence, where you add the last two numbers together in terms of how many screenshots there are here. So they're Fibonacciing how many screenshots are in here, and when do you think they'll hit their limit? So they got 719 upvotes on this. Here it says if it gets at least 144, tomorrow they upload a screenshot of the next version of that, one iteration further. So I think they're only going to get a few more days, because the number of how many upvotes they need might surpass how many people view it who like it enough. We'll see how many days they get. There's certainly going to be a day where they run out of the challenge, but that's impressive they got up to here so far. Now, we got lost though, because top today was not what we wanted. We wanted top all time. And these are the ones we already saw. So let's get back to where we were in them. Okay. This is a good one. This is a good comic strip. Do not remove bar from decimal. And we see that the 5/6 had a full decimal representation in the real world in some form, in that if we put the bar on there, it tells us infinite threes. But if you take the bar off, it makes infinite threes in some weird way. That's the implication, that taking the bar off makes it go 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So I think that's a pretty good comic. Next, after the ad, we have quite similar to when I made an episode on my combo class channel not that long ago. That was, I guess 8 months ago by now. Artificial intelligence versus mathematics. That episode covers stuff like this. When you talk to something like ChatGPT and you ask like 9.11 and 9.9, which is bigger? 9.11 is bigger than 9.9. And then they just go on with more dumb math, which the algorithm is somehow treating 11 there and 9 there like the units they're comparing, as opposed to the fact that this really means 9.11 and 9.90. And if you compare 90 and 11, then, you know. So here they say, the discrepancy is due to the way floating point. So this is the funniest thing, is when they're wrong, they come up with this like, as if they took way too many like hallucinogens and are like just spewing nonsense or something. Here they're talking about that the result of this discrepancy is due to how floating point arithmetic is handled. And it's like, floating point arithmetic shouldn't be needed to handle this simple of numbers. Floating point arithmetic is a way computers handle things with many digits, and a way of approximating the answer when a computer may not be able to handle an infinite or really long result. Now, this is just a joke on the word problems. This one's not that great. It says, okay, hey dumbass, stop texting my girlfriend. You want some problems? What if I do? Okay, take note. If a train is traveling at 72 kilometers per hour on a road of 360 kilometers, how much time will it take for it to arrive? Damn you, man. I'll leave her alone. Just calm down. That's better, asshole. So, oh, sorry. You couldn't see the end of it. That was the quotes. When I'm swearing right now, it's just the quotes. You know, trust me, I swear a little bit with my friends. Maybe I'll let loose on this channel when we do some profanity videos, but some kids might be watching, so I'm only swearing right now because I am quoting things. Now, that's all right of a joke. It's just a joke on the word problems. Okay, this one says, why does multiplying to... Okay, this one, actually, I just read through it right now. This is in the meme subreddit, but this is actually good descriptions of math. Look at this. I actually really like the way they describe this. This is actually really cool. Why does see, this is almost like the style I do, where you take a simple concept and then I figure out what's a new way to phrase this, where it combines it with some other concept or other visualization to make it more digestible. Here, somebody asked, why does multiplying two negative numbers equal a positive number? It doesn't make sense. And that's something that many children struggle with, and even adults. Like, why does multiplying two negatives equal a positive? And it's hard to explain because negative quantities are harder to conceptualize in the real world. You could think of them as like debt or like a hole in something, but it's still harder to conceptualize than like a positive value. You could just say an amount of apples or such. And, well, the first comment here is it doesn't make no sense, obviously. That is obviously not the really smart, interesting view of it that I was describing. This one is. Turn around. Turn around again. WTF, I'm facing the same direction. So that's sort of like you multiplied the negative sign once, multiplied the negative sign again, and then you're where you started. You turned around twice. And then this person says, okay, but then why doesn't multiplying two positive numbers equal a negative number? And the answer is, don't turn around. Don't turn around again. WTF, I'm facing the same direction. So when you multiply two positives, the signs sort of combine to be like, oh, I didn't turn around and I didn't turn around. Which ends up being the same as I turned around and I turned around when you're on this scale of flipping in an almost binary fashion like positives and negatives do. Now, here we have a joke on. This one's weird because the phrasing of this makes me know that someone just typed this in as like they constructed this. You know when somebody tries to make something look natural as a meme or whatever, but you know they just designed it. I think this person designed it because the sirs kind of throw me off, but maybe it's a foreign phrasing or something. I don't know. But the gag is decent. What's the difference between a diameter and a radius? And they mean like, how are they different? What is their traits that are different? But they say a radius. And it's like, what? But the, sir? But the, answer is technically correct if you treat difference as meaning like the subtractive amount. Diameter is 2 radii, twice a radius, and so a diameter and a radius have a difference of a radius. So technically they're correct, and their confusion is correct. Gotta love how languages work. Now, real quick, we'll do one or two more, then I'm going to look at the chat, and I think I'm going to move inside because I swear I'm getting so itchy from this, as one comment I saw said, Mosquito-geddon or something like that. You wouldn't believe the size of this big bite I got. Well, you'll believe it if you saw my last stream where when I smacked a mosquito, it literally looked almost as big as one of those typical house flies you see. Now, here we have a sort of joke, sort of just interesting fun fact. Here's a graph of the Super Bowl when that occurs, which, wait, oh no, it's search terms for both of them. So it's how often people search Super Bowl will happen more often when the Super Bowl occurs. So we can see what the Super Bowl is, this sports event that happens once a year, and we can see whenever it's happening, a lot more searches occur for it. That's in blue. I don't know why it blasted up there. I don't know what's up with that. But in any case, the red is supposed to be how to read Roman numerals. And it's funny because they label many of the Super Bowls with like Super Bowl XXXV or whatever. They're on like 50 or something now though. But a lot of them are labeled with Roman numerals, and so people search Roman numerals that much more often when the Super Bowl occurs, if we are to trust this graph. I don't know if it's really data or just a joke. I think it could be real data. Last one we'll look at before I think we move locations is going to be this one where you're 1.5 meters apart in all directions, according to, that's what you're supposed to do. I think this was probably for COVID protocols And I will say that diagrams like this, although this one is obviously incorrect because it's saying the diagonals should be 1.5 meters and the sides should be 1.5 meters. In general, I have nothing against because COVID was and is a real problem. And I think that people getting vaccines and wearing masks at the right times is helpful. I think it's ridiculous and unscientific to believe otherwise. And some people could maybe accuse me of bringing politics into this stream. Like I promised, I'll only do one political opinion stream before the big election this year. Only one. Maybe even just as a bonus video, not a stream. But this isn't that. We should not allow people to say you're being political when you're just talking about human health with diseases or talking about basic fundamental human rights or talking about things like global warming. We shouldn't allow people to say you're being political when you discuss those. Those are just real concepts that have somehow become turned into this, oh, that is a political divisive issue, when it's not. In this case, COVID was a real thing. So glad that we've mostly made it out of it, but it's still a big problem a lot of places. So we shall see. Now, the funny joke here is the solution to it. This is what they meant when we meant, oh, wait, why did it freeze? Okay, there we go. Why is it freezing when I do that? Okay. So this is the solution to how we can have 1.5 meter diagonals and sides. This must be what they meant. Last meme before we switch, we have the 5th grade math student is really good at multiplication. Easy. And the math PhD student, what's 5 plus 7? While it's an exaggeration, there is a somewhat true meme in the math community that the really great mathematicians are not always good at arithmetic. It's sort of a joke because some people assume that to be a good mathematician almost correlates or corresponds with how good at arithmetic you are, when it does not correlate or correspond, and in fact may anti-correlate in some way, because the more that you look at numbers abstractly and in different ways, maybe the less likely you are to remember how to do long division. Maybe, if your only view of high-level math is long division, that sticks in your head. But when you're exploring a ton of fields, you have them all as this blur of different possibilities. And so there are many logical reasons that I can relate to in some ways, where experimental mathematician who can find cool things is not always the same one as the one who's just somebody good at arithmetic. So let me respond to our comments before we have a really quick pause to maybe switch inside. And we got a lot of good ones. We got some Desmos fans. We got someone saying the meme is their math grade. Depending what grade you are in school, try any grade you're in. If you signed up for a class and you sort of, in where I'm from, you have to sign up for classes until you're about 17 or 18. It's like mandatory. And I think that's okay. I don't know if 17 or 18 would be the age I would create in my ideal society. I'm not sure. Could be younger or could be that. But I think it makes sense to have mandatory schooling up to a certain point. And in fact, if you are a parent who homeschools your children, you better be trying really hard, because public school teachers try really hard. And you will be letting your kid down if you homeschool and don't try as hard as the public school teachers. Now, in any case, I'm not going to do a long comment to every single comment here. Thank you for everybody who commented here on various things. And we got some fans of dark humor. We got some haters of ads. Both of those I relate to. And We got somebody who's trying to use some more emojis to create our log things. And thank you to all of the people who left fun thoughts. I'll look more through them later. For now, I think I'm going to transition us to an indoor realm for a moment. While I set up our indoor realm, which will just take a minute or two, and you know what? We're going to get to do something fun on the way. We're going to have a nighttime fruit pick. Now, fruits, this is a, if you hear the end product of this, you're going to be like, what do you mean? You picked a vegetable. But this is one of those things that are both a fruit and vegetable. A small tomato. Now, I got a bunch of small tomatoes growing on a bush, and it wasn't even here a year ago. Tomatoes happen to grow very well in this climate where I'm from, in parts of California, and my family planted a tomato bush not long ago, and it's already grown some really cool ones. They are turning this strange color of purple, and I was waiting for them to get fully purple in a way, but I realized that the ones that were getting too purple already tasted too mushy, and that you wanted to pick them when they were like this weird speckled purple-red look. So let's pick a couple of those speckled fellas on our way to... What is that sound? Do you hear that? That's some type of bird. There's a squawk. Listen. That's some type of goose or bird or something. I think it's a goose. Now, could be the turkeys around here, could be the various things. Now, let's switch zones. While we switch zones, before we get the tomatoes, I'm just going to have to go back to Desmos for a second. And no, oh my God. It was one of those giant suckers. Okay, we definitely have to go inside. That mosquito was so big. Okay, that mosquito was really, really, really big. I'm going to really quickly, while I make sure inside's set up and that no one's, home that's going to be bothered and that I have a good spot to put this and stuff, I'm going to put on a little animation for you folks. We are going to do, let's not do the square roots. Let's just do some nested trig functions. The sine of the tan of x factorial being less than or equal to the tan of the sine, oh, I need a t there. The tan of the sine of y factorial. Ooh, we got something weird. What if we change this? And now we put secants on these ones. And, now, what if we have one where it's secants and also sines? Now, I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but it creates cool shapes. So why don't we watch a little animation while I set things up? It's better than nothing in the background. And you know what? Okay, you folks want to hear one of my beats? We can hear some of my beats while I set stuff up. These are my instrumentals that I created. And these are songs that are in the background of my main combo class episodes when I use them in soundtracks, sometimes slowed down or pitch altered or stuff. And why don't we put on a beat or two while I set this up and we look at the animation. So, the other fun fact is that I am going to release an album where I am rapping and or singing over these beats. And you're going to be surprised that it's going to be really good, because you expect that, like me, not everyone would expect that I would be somebody who would create a good album. This, or at least create a good hip hop album. I'm like this geeky white guy, mathematician, weird, awkward, obsessed with numbers. I mean, I'm not actually awkward socially. I go to parties and get along with people, but I'm a little weird. And so you wouldn't expect necessarily I would be the guy to make a good hip-hop album, but I'm going to surprise you folks sometime next year. This year, I have other goals, such as publishing a card game that I'm finalizing. So, and of course, wrapping up grade -2, going into grade -3 with a bang. So, I'm gonna put on one or two of my beats, and I'm gonna run and set up the inside, and we're gonna move zones. So here, let's just do a couple of my short beats in a row. Oh, we need some A's in here so we can animate. Now we need to set our animation speed really low. Good. I'll be back soon. who stayed and listened to a few of my random beats while we watched this animation glitchily grow. And interesting, if you are watching this, how the different colors are tucked into each other at times. Sometimes seem to not relate, other times seem to seek each other's boundaries. And to respond to a few comments while we move locations, people are asking about what is math. Math is such a vague term, it is a subsection of science, and it is a beautiful one that verges on both real world findings, semi abstract findings, and super abstract findings. So it has quite a large amount of fields. If you want to really dive into what connects a lot of math, you may want to look into group theory or category theory, which I will cover someday. Now, somebody's mentioning different ways to look at different things. Someone's saying self-publishing. I'm not sure to what degree I will publish my things because I have many projects that I do hope to release. These include a card game that I am studying the math of as well, and I want to publish as a useful tool for classrooms, as well as something that people could play on a Friday night with their friends. Hard challenge. And so I have designed essentially a game that I'm creating the images for, and I may self-publish a card game that I just try and sell to you folks for as cheap as possible. Now, I have purposefully not taken any sponsors, not taken any merch, or not sold any merch, and not tried to milk any money out of my subscribers in any way. And so if I ever try and sell you something, trust me that I'm only going to do that if I think it's a really cool product for the world to have. And, you know, my ideas have been, ooh, it would be kind of cool to sell some random merch related to clocks, like some backwards moving clocks, or some merch related to dice, like some dice with different combinations of numbers on them that create cool patterns when rolled together, which is a concept I'll cover next grade, such as intransitive dice. And the main idea I have now is I just want to sell my card games, my books, and my music. And, you know, maybe someday I'll sell shirts or something, but for now, the first thing that you can expect me to sell, apart from my Patreon, which you can support me on, or donations through streams and stuff, will be a card game. And it's going to be probably called Numberations. And it's going to, I'm deciding the exact combination of which cards are going to be in the deck. There's going to be approximately 20 different cards, approximately 60 to 80 total cards, if you count copies of them in different assortments. And you're not going to have to use all the cards. You're going to be able to create maps out of just some of the cards and create a full game. So you could create many different maps out of the single deck. I'll explain more later, but I will probably self-publish my music too. Believe it or not, I've done it in the past. When I graduated high school, about 13 years ago, I handed out a CD I made, which was me rapping over at least a dozen, 12 to 15 or so songs of beats I had created out of sampling different cartoons and rap verses I had created myself. And I awkwardly handed that out in my senior year of high school when we were graduating to random classmates and teachers. And I had published other mixtapes under names that are not Demotro or Combo Class, so to find them, you might have to wait a while, although I showed some to Patreon supporters in the past. You might have to wait to see all of it. I've released many songs, and have many unreleased ones, but even released ones under several names. I am featured and as a main creator of albums that are even on Spotify and Apple Music and things like that. But they're a name you folks don't know. Ha ha ha. And Dat Piff. Do any rap fans know Dat Piff? It's a mixtape website. In the year 2013, I decided to release 13 rap mixtapes that year to match the year number 2013. And I actually did it in a somewhat hilarious story I'll tell another day. But those were hosted on DatPiff, which is now down. Luckily, I still have the files of the songs, so I'll re-release those someday. Shout out to DatPiff and when Lil Wayne and Meek Mill broke it as well, if any of you are rap fans. Now, people are leaving plenty of nice comments, but like I said, I want to transfer locations. These mosquitoes are killing me. So, while we transfer locations, I'm going to temporarily put that screen back on top of our weird graphs and bring us to an in-between place where we're going to see two different types of plants that are quite interesting. Now, we'll be seeing this for just a second. I'll still be here while I'm moving us. And the first type of plant on the way, I already spoiled the second. The second is going to be a fresh tomato I get to eat. And it's a cool type that was grown here. The first is going to be a look at what does it look like when ginger grows. You ever tasted ginger? Yeah, it's a common spice. Common, sometimes used less as a spice, almost more like, you can't call it an herb. What do you call that when you use a spice-like thing in a fresh form? It is a fresh sort of spice that is used in many things. And ginger is actually a root. And you want to know what ginger root looks like? Let's crank up the brightness. Oh, Dandelion's here. Dandelion. If anyone doesn't know, for some reason, that's one of my cats. Dandelion, you're here. Oh, Dandelion, you're so soft. Okay, that's what ginger root looks like. These roots right here. Do you, can you see that? Here. These roots right here are ginger. These aren't the freshest. These are like old ginger roots growing here. But that's to some degree what a ginger root might grow like. Now, many plants, even if you eat some part of them that's just their root or whatever, may also have beautiful other portions of them. For example, ginger turns out to have really cool flowers. So let me show you how ginger, although we eat the roots, turns out to have really cool flowers. Now, look at these flowers. These are flowers of the ginger plant. They used to look even more like perky, I want to say, like they were like more upright and like fluffy-ish looking, but they're still looking pretty cool. These are flowers of the ginger plant. Isn't that pretty? Look at all of these. Isn't that pretty cool? Flowers of the ginger plant. Okay. Anyway, if I go around this small corner right here, I'll see what plants are happening over here. Well, that's a blackberry vine right there. And blackberries grow too well in Berkeley. You have to trim them or they'll take over. And they will just fly around the place. Their roots underground connect in a crazy way. They'll pop up where you don't expect them. You got to be careful with your blackberries or they'll take over. But they're still really good, so you want some blackberries in the mix. Maybe we'll do... I've wanted to figure out how to do streams where I can take us on the road. And when I tried to do a stream on the phone instead of the computer, which we're doing it on now, it forced it to look like a short, like in the vertical style. So I need to figure out how on my phone I can do a live stream that's horizontal, because that's what I want them to look like, as opposed to being vertical. Now, I'm sure there's a way. Oh, by the way, I should really pause the Desmos that's still going that we're not even watching. Um, I'm even going to delete that page. Nah, I'll stay on it, but I'll pause it. The animation is not going to help if we're not even watching it and we're just, having that reduce our amount of computer power. In any case, why am I over here? It's not for the blackberry vines. It's for something else. It's for this. This is a tomato bush. And this was planted relatively recently and sprouted up like crazy. So these are all tomato vines we can see, but do you see these ones right here? Let's try and get, this is really hard to hold and show. I'll make this work. Do you see these ones right here? These are little green tomatoes that are gonna grow ripe. Now, there are some that are riper. You see these red looking ones? Now, they might not look red enough at first because they almost look like they're trying to turn purple. But I've tried them when they turn too purple and they're not as good. They're better when you have them at this stage. And so here, we're gonna have a small, some call these grape tomatoes, or it's somewhat like what's called a cherry tomato, but due to its larger semi-purple nature, I'm compelled to call it a grape tomato. But I don't know its exact variety. But fresh tomatoes are way different than the ones that you get in the store. Tomatoes are one of the fruits that suffers the most when you treat it in the way you have to transport fruits from one location to the supermarket. You often have to refrigerate foods in that case. When you move something like tomatoes somewhere else, you'll probably have them in some sort of cooler before they get to the supermarket. And tomatoes suffer the most from refrigeration. When you have a fresh tomato that has not gone through any refrigeration process and just got plucked off the vine, it is different. It's really good. Oh my god. That is so good. Okay, we're gonna have one more. Let's look at this cluster. Can you see that cluster? Look at this cluster right here. All of those are beauties. Not all of them are ripe. But look at this beautiful cluster that has some ripe ones on it. And right here is the ripest one. So, there we go. You often want to take the ripest one, even if it's not what you want right. Oh, it's so ripe it's split. Sometimes they get too ripe. Their filling grows too quick for their shell. Almost reminds me of how bugs can only have a certain size of exoskeleton. You cannot have exoskeletons on Earth's amount of pressure that are above a certain size. And so bugs cannot evolve to be the size of something like whales because the exoskeleton works differently. Now, well, I don't know about whales because they're underwater. I don't know if we've tested this exoskeleton stuff for undersea creatures, but at least for oversea creatures. Undersea is crazy. I love watching undersea documentaries of oceans and stuff. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do a combo class about that because I would get so claustrophobic down on a submarine, but we might have to just to see the weird stuff down there. That might be the grade -6 finale. Maybe we'll go down on a submarine. So, you know what? Even though this is completely split and bugs were probably nibbling at that split part, I'm going to eat it. I think that it's going to be delicious and perfect. In fact, I'm going to eat another. This one might not even be split. This one was also split. There's a few that got, I'm telling you, you want to wait until fruits are ripe, but these ones, we waited too long almost because we didn't realize the stage that they actually are perfect. So this is past the stage again, but whatever, we're going to eat it. Still so good. Okay. Now, thank you to everybody who's chatting with each other and leaving interesting comments. We're going to move to indoors now. Now, to move indoors, I will temporarily put this back just for a second, just so that we don't see my address or anything. But soon we'll be indoors, and we're going to get back to the stream's topic. To anybody who's just here for the memes, don't worry. We're going to do more of those. Don't worry. So, getting ourselves indoors, let's take a look at some more of them memes. All right. Here we are, somewhere indoors. And you know what? The background walls almost match the green of our Desmos. But sorry to Desmos, we're moving back to the tab that says our Lord and Savior -1/12 due to what we discussed earlier. Now, moving downward a bit, I gotta move this thing. This is not at the right spot. We can see that this one's multiplying be like. And we got, a casual Winnie the Pooh chilling when your multiplication looks like a times of that sort that looks X-like. We got Winnie the Pooh looking a little more fancy when your multiplication just is a dot. And we got hyper fancy Winnie the Pooh when there's none. When you just put NP means some natural number times some prime. Nothing between them. Sort of like when you have two terms in parentheses next to each other with nothing between it implies multiplication. This is just sort of a joke about how many different ways multiplication has and how when you get into more fancy-ish sounding math, you do get into the times shrinking, how much they include an X sign to a dot to a nothing. Now, okay, let me close my window real quick. So I'm a loud talker, so I don't bother my neighbors too much while we continue this. Now, we're going down and we're getting another one of these ones that's annoying. I'm skimming over it before because it was a sponsored post. It's hard to see which ones are sponsored right away unless you look out for it. Sponsored means ad. Now, we skip that. Don't worry. Now, here we got one of these Drake memes. I got a comment on this just saying, if Drake comes up, I just gotta say, he's not like us. Kendrick completely won that beef that occurred recently. I don't know if all of you are in that sort of pop culture sphere where you're aware of the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, but I think it was historically interesting. I might even make a bonus video about it sometime. And I will say that Kendrick Lamar absolutely destroyed Drake. So these memes, are less powerful seeing that now. However, we can still get this good Drake reaction image on the side where it's like, nah, yeah. So here it's saying, my proposal for factorial inverse notation. Now, normally you say 120 equals 5 factorial. They're saying Drake says, nah. Now you get to the backwards version. Instead of an exclamation point, let's put a question mark. 120 question mark equals 5. Yeah. So that one's pretty funny because it's actually logical that you might want an inverse factorial notation. Kind of cool. But I don't know if we want it to be the question mark, and we definitely don't want to like reject the main factorial just to put that one. We would want them to be friends. Now, here's one a joke about machine learning. We got I'll instead of saying the names of interviewer versus me, I'll just have interviewer have a different voice than my normal voice and have me have my normal voice. What's your biggest strength? Machine learning. What's 6 plus 9? 0. Incorrect. It's 15. It's 15. What's 4 plus 20? It's 15. So that's just a joke on how it reminds me of what some AIs do, where you teach them one thing right, but they don't apply it right to the bigger concept. They just apply it right to what they temporarily can get away with. Okay, here we got one where we have the title is Mathematics is Evergreen. Evergreen is an interesting term. It relates to a type of tree, is where the term came from, but it also can be applied many ways. You can hear it as a YouTube creator, like which types of content are evergreen implies which ones would be viewable from a future date and still be just as accessible, just as fun, and etc. As opposed to which ones are maybe, like if you were focused on pop culture, for example, that would have less of a chance of being evergreen if that pop culture moment passed. Now, here we see physics. Oh, that textbook is outdated. It was written before Newtonian mechanics. Now we have chemistry. Oh, that textbook is obsolete. It was written before the electron was discovered. Now we have mathematics. That textbook was written thousands of years ago and is still as useful and relevant as ever. And it's somewhat true that physics and chemistry, as their examples here, among other fields, their adaptation over time is more often editing the past as opposed to building on it. I mean, it builds on it. Trust me, these are beautiful fields. But it has to reformat the past beliefs when they move forward. There are more hypotheses as opposed to anything they would call proofs. And mathematics, the aspects of it that relate to things like number theory, that are just this realm of numbers and such, do sort of just build on each other. And occasionally we prove something from the past was wrong, but more often it does almost go like this meme where, yeah, the Euler stuff is completely correct. Now we know a bit more about it, but we still like reading Euler's texts. And they're, Euler's texts are more relevant to modern mathematics than, say, Einstein's texts are to science. That's nothing against Einstein. He had brilliant texts and they are relevant, but there's more ways in which those have to be edited or updated to fit modern science than ways in which Euler's mathematics have to be edited or updated to modern math. Here we have why mathematicians might fail some questions on IQ tests. Math break 1, 3, 5, 7. What number will be next? And our answer is 217,341. Because if our function is 18,111 over 2 times x to the fourth minus 90,555 times x cubed plus 6, and all this other stuff, then the first number is 1, then 3, then 5, then 7, then 217,341. And this is a funny gag that once again taps into real stuff where, almost any actually funny thing taps into something worth philosophically or even scientifically investigating. Because if it's funny, it's usually funny because it taps into some true aspects of reality or nature or something. And so here, the real aspect it taps into that makes it funny is that it is actually true that we can design a function that could create any number next there. There is some function I can design that any number I want could be next there, and yet the first four elements of that function would be 1, 3, 5, 7. So although you think it should be 9, because that's like the simplest pattern that fills it, that's not the pattern that fills it. That is just the most convenient pattern that fills it. Now, going down a bit, we have, this is something, either I put this or a related flipped fact of that in a short of mine a while ago. Not from this meme, but it's just a fun fact in general about how numbers work in a base. Here they say, here's an interesting approximation for the number 8. Some Twitter page posted that, and it says 987654321 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 equals 8 point a ton of zeros and then a little shred more. And I guess the meme or joke here, because that's more so just a fun fact up to this point, is the reply. Finally, a nice formula when I need an 8 in a hurry without memorizing it. Anyway, we're going to do a few more memes. This has already been an hour and a half. We've been streaming, even, we took a couple short breaks. So if anyone has any other comments, requests, or whatever, please leave them now because we might only have a limited amount of memes left. Someone said back to Desmos. I don't know if you meant that was when we went back there or if it's a request. If you mean that you want more graphs, this stream is not about graphs as much, but we will do more graph streams before long. I love fiddling with those things. Don't worry. And somebody says a better notation for inverse factorial would be the upside down exclamation point, such as is used in certain languages. In certain phrases, in like certain Spanish languages, you have the flipped exclamation point. When you put that on a phrase, you put it on both sides with one of them flipped. And so I agree. The flipped. Now the question is just if it comes before or after, and I think it should come on the other side if it's the flipped one. The flipped exclamation point, I think it should come on the other side of the number. So, good thought. Now, someone, whoever I replied to about Desmos said, oh, they just meant I showed the Desmos thing. So, that's okay. Yeah, we will show the Desmos thing whenever we would need some cool shapes in between. Now, for a few more memes, let's look at this one. This one says, is it rigorous enough? And they say, now this was a meme format I've seen in the past where it's like, he says something, she replies like, something, right? And then he pauses and she's like, right? Or maybe he's supposed to say something in the gap, I forgot. In this case, it's, I'm going to prove that, what is this? This is saying the sum of 1 over 2 to the 2. I don't even know if they need the 2n there. I think this gag, should that just be a 2n? Or maybe a 2n makes sense. But they're saying that the sum of this infinite, no, that is right. Because the rate we're shrinking here, this is correct. 1 over 2 to the 2n, the sum as we go to infinity equals 1. But there's a 3 times in front or something. It kind of cuts off that part. Anyway, the gag is that it continues shrinking the image in a way that these would geometrically add up to the solution of that sequence in a geometric way. And what she asked was, algebraically, right? Here we got this lady from SpongeBob. She was SpongeBob's driving instructor, or boating driving instructor, I remember. Actually, season 1 of SpongeBob was pretty dang good. I know it probably got bad at some point, but that first season or two was pretty good. Now, this meme says, when you start learning math discovered later than 1800. It's like, oh, Neptune. All right, this one says, okay, this is another one where if you hear me say anything that you consider a swear, I am just saying it because I am quoting things. Here, and okay, I gotta be honest, since we are talking about these people, Kanye, good artist. I listened to a lot of his stuff back in the day. Bad human, doing a lot of bad things in the world the past couple years in terms of spreading the wrong beliefs, but good music, at least in the past, but kind of bad human. Lil Wayne, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, rappers of all time. I know people who don't know much about rap might think that's insane because you probably just heard like a couple pop songs that are pretty bad from him. But I swear, if you really investigate the catalog of his mixtapes and such, Lil Wayne is one of the greatest rappers of all time. Kanye is a decent rapper, a really good producer, and also an insane human. Now, to analyze the meme past that, we have, according to Kanye, one good girl is worth 1,000 bitches. And I assume that was a rap line in one of the songs. I even remember it. And we hear, according to Lil Wayne, bitches come a dime a dozen. Now, okay, I know these are misogynistic lines. I don't think it's cool to call women this word or something. I'm quoting it in the context, but I would not call a woman that word or something, which seems to be what they're implying. If anything, this word would only want to be used for like your hater, not like to represent a woman versus a man, not trying to be sexist with the slang words we use. So these are kind of cherry picking some pretty bad lines from these artists, honestly, if we're looking at it in a moral way, because slang changes and gets outdated, but at any time, this verges on misogyny a bit. And make sure that you respect people of any gender the same, just like you'd want to respect people of any race the same, and etc. However, okay, despite those criticisms, they got a funny meme here because they made a calculation based on these two rap lines. They calculated that that means one good girl is worth $8.33. Okay, I hope no one gets mad at me for quoting things that sound misogynistic if I at least make my commentary to make sure all of you are very respectful as humans, whether or not you laugh at a certain meme or something. Now, going forward, we have one about 9.8. Now, here's sort of a joke where physicists are saying, you cannot take G, which is a gravitational constant, equals 10. It's 9.8. Which is also sort of a joke because G is not exactly also 9.8. So we already sort of have a joke there of G is sometimes 9. I mean, I don't mean sometimes 9.8. I mean more like it's close to 9.8. It's never exactly 9.8 here for what we define G as. It is a gravitational constant and it's about 9.8. In fact, let me look up right here. Value of G constant. They're talking about uppercase G right there. Is that the same here? Gravitational constant. Okay, we'll look into all that later. Whatever. For any case, they're looking at right there. You cannot take that. It's 9.8. Also, physicists. Cat is dead and alive. Reference to Schrodinger's cat. Sin x equals x. relationship to how on big scale things you could assume. A lot of these are basically related to if you're like an engineer or a physicist or a chemist or something, sometimes approximations do the trick because you're working in the real world and you need something just close enough. And so certain approximations in the big scale, even if they're off on the small scale, that offness vanishes on the big scale. So you can assume silly things like sine x equals x because the difference between them isn't big enough in certain full equations. Here we have let penguin be a cylinder. That's sort of like the type of thing you'd hear on, one of your exams in school. If the penguin's a cylinder and we slide at a constant rate of 3 point, assume no friction and imagine an ideal body for the mass. And so it's sort of joking that physicists are precise about certain things and have to be really sloppy about other things. Physics and math are different subsets of science that overlap a lot. Now, here we have one that says, my $200 plus graphing calculator casually taking 10 minutes to compute a derivative on the final exam. And the guy's really mad. And this is a real world issue. I remember when I had to buy a graphing calculator that looked kind of like that thing, the TI something, that back in the day, more than 10 years ago, so I was in advanced algebra. The first time I needed one of those would have been normally when I was in 9th grade here, but I was in 8th grade because I was a year ahead in that. So I would have been 13 when I was 13. That is 17 to 18 years ago. I bought one of these and it cost $50. With inflation, $50 was even worse back then. $50 for a calculator, but that long ago. And it's just like you needed it to be in the classes. And it's because the TI whatchamacallit company got a freaking monopoly on it. Stupid. These should be... Okay, if I ever get rich for some reason, I promise you folks that after I save a couple of natural environments and put in a little work to help some habitats, my next goal would be to get things like this to students without costing a lot of money. So that should be a goal. If anyone in my viewership is rich, after you put some money in my Patreon, give one of these to each school. Or more than one per school. Okay, anyway. Here we have Pythagorean theorem discovered around 500 BC. People before 500 BC, wait, I have to replay that GIF/GIF. It's because the dude's taking a really bad path around there. It's because he went in a completely, he had a completely good diagonal path to just walk across here. I guess it's because this royal red carpet is where you're supposed to walk. You can't walk on the checkered carpet. But it's a joke because the diagonal would relate in a way to the Pythagorean theorem. Here we have some kid crying with a pencil and a notepad saying, "Me studying for the degree I chose myself." And I'm sure that anybody studying for a degree will feel this at some points. Here, okay, this one is another GIF/GIF where, okay, if I make it too big, it doesn't actually help. It makes it the wrong scale. So I'll just shrink myself a little so we can see it all. And I'm going to shrink the page a bit. Wait, that didn't help. I'm going to shrink the page this way. So this is a meme from this guy who was from The Incredibles. All I remember about this guy is this was like the dad from The Incredibles. He was really strong, I think, was his power. I think he was just really strong. I forget. But The Incredibles was a Pixar movie this guy was in. There's a meme format where this guy goes to like sort of darker expressions as you evolve through things. And this one takes it sort of to the extreme where it goes through many different sorts of categorizations of numbers as he sort of decays. And we have the rational numbers. Those are all on our real number line. He's looking good. And we have the irrational numbers. And he's like, okay, this is a little weirder. We have the complex numbers. Now we got our eyes and stuff. Hyperbolic numbers. Now we're on a whole nother level. Quaternions. These are things I haven't even made up. Okay, so these are much less common, but they actually do exist. Octonions. These ones, these are less common, but they exist. Split octonions. And he's just not liking these different ways the numbers get crazier. These different phrases right here are what we're losing. And it's true that as we go from like irrational numbers to complex, we lose a certain type of being able to order them. As we go to these things called quaternions, we get the loss of commutativity, and other things are lost over time. As we get to the octonions, we even lose associativity. Those are normal properties we assume to be true with things like multiplication. But going forward, now this guy is just going to get to some crazy ones. These are way less common, but they aren't they? I had to look one or two of these up. I saw this meme before. I had to look this one up. Trigon to duonions. It's a table that is an extension of the type of thing that goes from like complex numbers to what's called quaternions and etc. This is apparently some level of extension to it. We'll have to look up trigondians another day. That actually, did that crash this, or that's just a longer screen than the rest because the guy he passed away. R.I.P. Now, I like this guy. This is a guy who's appeared on the channel Numberphile. I know earlier I made a criticism of Numberphile based on our, this phrase right here about -1/12. But Numberphile, like I said, Brady, the guy who runs it, is a great interviewer, often interviews great mathematicians. And I love this guy. I think his name's Cliff. He makes Klein bottle. Oh, that's funny. We saw a Klein bottle earlier in the meme about your blanket having only one side. This guy makes 3D versions of the closest we can make to what a Klein bottle would look like in our ability to create things. And he likes shapes and silly math, and he has a very playful attitude in the videos I've seen of him. And so here we got a quote. Someone says, "So what do you do at your job? Multiply big numbers?" And mathematicians go, "Math ain't about numbers." And it's sort of true on the big scale that if you compile to all the mathematical fields, that only a small percent of them would be about direct numbers. Many of them would use numbers, but there's a good chunk of mathematical research and fields that don't use numbers as much as you may be used to mathematicians using. This is an overstatement, of course, but, sometimes you need an overstatement for your joke to work. Now, going forward to a few more math memes, we got, so you like math? Name every number. And this person put an open interval from -infinity to infinity. It's acceptable. Now, here it says, "I don't understand it either, but it belongs here." Posted to a Facebook group with nobody understanding. What is this? Okay, let's see. So if that's an equation, okay, no, I got this. Here's what it is. It's the right answer, but they came to it the wrong way. It's one of those things where you do something wrong with your equation, but you still get the right answer. So in this case, that step's wrong, where -6 should have become +6 over there, but it's -6 over there. And then they also do another step wrong that I guess cancels that out, where Here, instead of dividing by 2, they multiply by 2. And so they get the right answer to this, but they did it the wrong way. That's the joke. Actually, believe it or not, I might make an episode someday about types of number that have a false equation that you can do wrong to get the right answer, because some of them have patterns. Some of them are like an infinite series of types of number that, like the numerator and denominator, if you falsely cancel out the digits in a certain way, this infinite family of fractions all reduces to their right answers. And so I might actually make an episode that hints on stuff like this someday, but it probably will not cite this one. Now, skipping our ad, our next real one is when they ask if you understood the proof, but you didn't even understand the theorem. Okay? Okay, this sounds like it could be a little offensive or something. Let's see where they're going with this. Ultimate gay test, V2. I'm a little worried this is gonna like not be a very cool thing, but let's see where they're going with this. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. What is your gender? Is X. Y is what gender are you attracted to? And then you have, does X equal Y? Yes, you are gay. No, you are not gay. Okay, that is an ultimate gay test. It's a very trivial one. It is based on the definition of being gay, but they luckily did not say anything offensive about people of alternate sexualities or anything, because, you know, I support people of all types of stuff. I'm a very liberal guy. I live in Berkeley, California. So you better not come at me with any, you know, anti-LGBT type stuff. So I was a little worried here for a second, but it is factually is a gay test. So going further, we have when physics teacher says that friction, air resistance, and energy loss can be ignored, you do the thing that this bear does. Bounce the ball and I kind of love when cartoons stretch reality like that. Like, this is what I love about old Looney Tunes and stuff. In fact, I swear I saw a Tom and Jerry one when I was scrolling through the top ones earlier. We have to get at least to the Tom and Jerry one before we stop, because old Looney Tunes and even Tom and Jerry's, which are a little less artistically done but still hilarious, have a brilliant, beautiful style. And beginning before that, from the Fleischer Bros. Someday I may make like a 3-hour documentary about the history of animation, because I think the animation between the 20s to 40s or 50s in America did brilliant things over those years. And the main ones there, I would say, are the Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies from Warner Bros., as well as what's called Fleischer Bros. There's certain Disney cartoons that are great, but I wouldn't put those on the level of the Looney Tunes, in my opinion. And there's other things like the directors from Looney Tunes, what they did after. Tex Avery was a director who moved on to make hilarious cartoons of other companies, and etc. Somebody here mentioned an Abbott and Costello routine in the comments. While that is not a cartoon, it's similar, cartoonish. Maybe I'll have to do a history about old vaudeville-ish real-life comedy duos as well. Now, and as a comment noted, I hope they don't contain homophobia. If you were referring to this meme, my opinion is that it doesn't, that this is not homophobic. But I was a little worried myself. If you mean something else, let me know. But trust me, we are not homophobic around Combo Class, because we are not anti somebody for a choice that they're just born into, which includes things like what gender they naturally feel like, what sexuality they naturally feel connected to, what race they are born as, what class of rich versus poor they are born into. Traits like that, we're not going to make people seem better or worse based on, because those are just the ways we were. So you only want to ever roast somebody for a a choice they made that you disagree with. Whereas although some people would falsely argue otherwise, stuff like being gay is not really a choice. It's sort of just the way that certain people are. Now, and trust me, I have friends who are gay and even friends who are trans. So don't come at me with anything close to homophobia, or you're not welcome in the combo class. But moving on to our other memes. Baby, can you peel this orange for me? Of course, baby. Peel. Okay, so this is a joke on this classic mathematics video about how to turn a sphere inside out. I don't know why it got so classic. It's like this old documentary about how to turn a sphere inside out that has a like bajillion views on YouTube and has become this cultural icon. It's a good video, but I don't know how it attained that status. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know how. But anyway, this one video about turning spheres inside out from back in the day created a whole set of memes of you having to make these shapes to create different inversions of spheres. This one's actually good because this one is a false proof. So this is less of what I would call a meme and more of what I would call an interesting analysis of what appears to be a proof and appears to be giving us a clearly false result and why it goes wrong. So we have, and this one's really subtle. Like we can't explain why it goes wrong in a quick sentence. Draw a circle. Draw a square around it. So here we have a circle that compared to the diameter, the radius is 3.14. The square's perimeter is 4 because each of those radii are half of that d. I mean, if we just add up the d's, we can see d's are the side length. So the perimeter of the square is 4. Now we remove the corners by tucking them in. Perimeter is still 4. We remove some more corners. Perimeter is still 4. Repeat to infinity. So pi is 4. You got a problem, Archimedes? Now, I guess if I had to try and explain where this goes wrong in a sentence, I would say that repeating procedures can approach things at a different rate than... Okay, it's hard to explain this. I don't know the right terminology, but let me explain it like this. You could have a mathematical equation like, here's what this reminds me of. A definition of E, where E is a limit related to 1 plus 1 over n. I don't want to graph that. I want to see just someone write it down. I just want to see an image of this to show you guys. The limit of 1 over n to the n as n approaches infinity. So this is one way to approach the irrational number e. And a lot of people don't get how that approaches something like 2.7, because the inside right here, if we send n to infinity, goes to 1. This whole inside chunk goes to 1 plus something that approaches 0. This outside chunk goes to infinity. So if you analyze these separately, you're like, we have 1 to the power of infinity. However, that's not what the limit of this is. If you look at it at any stage, when you're taking the n's in conjunction to each other, it never goes to 1. It never even gets that close to 1. When you start at the first power, we're at 2. We get 4 is when n is 1. No. When n is 1, it's 2. When n is 2, we have 1.5 to the power of 2. So we have 3/2 squared. When n is 2, we have 9/4. And it approaches this value around 2.7, that's the constant E. But you have to look at them in conjunction with the approach. Because if you look at them separately, you're like, that bit goes toward 1, that bit goes toward infinity, so let's treat it like 1 toward infinity. Doesn't work. You got to look at them together. So that's where this goes wrong, basically, is they're looking at a pattern and another pattern and sort of saying, if we continue this, that we can just line up the two patterns separately and apply them instead of going. That's not a direct correlation, but it reminded me of it. Maybe another day I'll do a longer dive into why that particular type of proof does not work. But I love these false proofs that have some logic behind them where it's sort of tricky to see where they're false. It's generally, though, about when you repeat an infinite process, it doesn't always approach the things that any given finite step there is. Now, here's me trying to find the minus sign I lost in the 3-page derivation. I could relate to that if that was, going through the math. You're like, oh no, I did all these integrals where I think I had a minus sign earlier. Where'd it go? Okay, this is the Tom and Jerry, and this is where I said we may wrap it up, that we were going at least to this. Tom and Jerry, I had to mention as this meme because not only is it a great meme, but because I mentioned Looney Tunes earlier. And while Tom and Jerry is not as funny, they were made by the company Okay, I know way too much about cartoons from that era. So Tom and Jerry is made by the company MGM, which are typically not as funny as Looney Tunes. However, the director of Looney Tunes, who originally invented Bugs Bunny and Daffy, named Tex Avery, who left Looney Tunes at a pretty early stage, ended up working at MGM. And the funniest MGM cartoons, meaning the funniest cartoons of the company that made these guys, were actually ones that didn't star one of these main characters, that were directed by Tex Avery. He directed some cartoons by some recurring characters, such as this guy called Droopy, who later was used by other animators. But the best Tex Averys are not a recurring character. They're a one-shot where you just have this single cartoonish 7-minute thing. And he is a great director. Now, someday in my 3-hour documentary about the history of animation that I'll probably make someday or another, I will mention Tex Avery as well as the great directorial different styles of the Looney Tunes directors, Bob Clampett, Chuck Jones, Robert McKinley, and others. So, and I'll also mention the decay of Looney Tunes as it went, at least temporarily, toward wanting to just be something you could run reruns on TV and satisfy a kid in the background, as opposed to old Looney Tunes that were showed in theaters and were meant for any age and were genuinely good works of art regardless of your age. Now, here's the joke behind this one right here. Let's look at the one that we're going to end on for our memes. Here we have these 3 guys who are classics in our Tom and Jerry universe. You got Tom, Jerry, and the dog who I think's called Spike. And so here you have scenes where they're all fighting each other, because usually Tom is trying to get Jerry and failing. And then sometimes Spike's in the episode and he's trying to get Tom and failing. And you get some interesting rock, paper, scissors dynamics at times. Now, here we have 3 to the 3rd power is about to smash the brains out of 3 times 3, who's about to smash the brains out of 3 plus 3. Here, there's the same ways they phrase the operations, but we got 2s. 2 times 2 is friends with 2 to the power of 2 is friends with 2 plus 2, because they're all the same. These are all like 4. They're all equal and they're all friends. Now here we have 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 to the power of 1, which is 1. And 1 plus 1, which is randomly-ish more. This is where addition wins. And so this little addition guy This is one of the scenes where they carve up the steak, where they're trying to do it in 3 equal pieces, but whoever's drawing the lines draws them very unfairly. And then we get the zeros. 0 plus 0 and 0 times 0 are just terrified of 0 to the power of 0 because 0 to the power of 0 is conflicting in different fields of math, whether it makes more sense to treat it as a 0, a 1, or an undefined quantity. So that's a pretty good one. And I guess that's enough math memes for today, probably. There's plenty of good ones that we could scroll through in the future. Maybe another day we'll return to this. But for now, I think I'm going to have to wrap up our stream. Thank you all for joining me for this 2-hour stream. Make sure you're tuned into my main combo class channel because my last episode was about a fun new natural phenomena, but our next episode will be even better. It's going to be a really long mathematical one, including some original proofs of mine. And so that's going to be a cool, rare one. Will come out about a week from now. In that meantime, there will be other bonus content on this channel, shorts, bonus videos, or whatever ends up coming out. Some cool stuff will come out in the meantime. Anyway, I love you all. If anyone wants to support me extra, apart from comments and watching are the biggest things, there is a Patreon and stuff like that as well. So I love all of you. Thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you again in whatever thing we do next. Hope you all enjoy your rest of your night.